want to talk to you now about personal influences on your experience of grief. So let's say 10 people experience an identical sibling death. Let's say the 10 people are all 25 years of age and their sibling is 30 years of age, and they all die from the same medical condition in exactly the same circumstances. We would expect that their grief would be identical. However, far from it, because one major factor in the grief is your personality style. And let's look at the three main personality styles. So if you are a directional personality, that means that you're balanced, you can see the bigger picture, your emotions are very balanced usually, and you have a real stability in yourself. You can hold the ground underneath yourself really well. And this directional person will be absolutely devastated by the grief. However, because their psychology is so robust, they won't fall apart. They may momentarily fall apart, but they will pick themselves back up and they will be able to adjust to it. They'll be able to adjust to the broken heart. They will have terrible days and they will have good days, but their life will not fall apart, essentially. With the impulsive person, if you're more inclined to be impulsive people do not like to feel pain. They live their life trying to avoid pain. They suppose they want to feel good, so their life is all about feeling good and experiencing pleasure, and so they like to distract themselves from pain. If I'm an impulsive person and I experience some kind of pain, some kind of hardship, I am looking for a buzz, a distraction. So that could be something as simple as, I've had a really stressful day at work. So you know what I want to do this evening? I just want to have a couple of glasses of wine. I will look for something that's going to make me feel good. And I'm going to bury my head in the sand. So when we amplify that in terms of sibling grief, which is a monumental pain in a person's life, the avoidance can get bigger. So first of all, I don't want to deal with my pain. I will maybe become more prone to addiction, so I will drink a lot more. I will look for tablets from the doctor and maybe take a few more than I should. I will shop. You know, Amazon becomes my best friend, and I'm browsing the shops, and I will start to gamble. I look for ways to give myself a buzz, or I just go out with my friends all the time. Like if someone says to me, fancy a night out, absolutely anything to get away from this pain. So what can happen is your life becomes a distraction from the pain, and we get into lots of impulsive behaviours, and the impulsive behaviours can very quickly turn to addictive behaviours, and then of course you have a whole host of other issues happening there, because the addiction now trumps the actual grief. And you know, when a person comes to talk to me and they are impulsive and they've got into those addictive patterns, the first stage in the work is not to work with the grief. The first stage to work with is to try to balance the person up and kind of manage those addictive behaviours. So I would say to you, if you're tending to be impulsive, to maybe begin to say, you know, do I have to rigidly avoid the pain? What would it be like to somehow feel a little bit of it and then not have to start to immediately feel good afterwards? Because that can lead to a lot of complication. So the third personality type is the inhibitive personality. And this is the person who's disposed to worrying and being obsessive and overthinking and overanalyzing. They're very, very deep thinkers. They take everything far too seriously, and they tend to live with a lot of pressure. So these people have the devastation and the sadness, but also there's death worry, and they worry about their life, and they worry about where the loved one has gone, and they develop all sorts of anxiety symptoms, and we'll see what some of those symptoms look like later on. But this person becomes just wrapped in negative thinking. And again, the negative thinking and the catastrophic thinking is not the same as the grief. The grief and sadness is really a broken heart being expressed. But this worry and this negativity, and of course we are all negative at the time of a sibling death. How can I go on? And this is just the most terrible, terrible thing. But the inhibitive person may stay in that negativity and may find it difficult to come back and live their life with anxiety. And another thing that happens is previous loss can actually come back up. So let's say you're 35 years of age and you have just lost a sibling and you're devastated. But when you're 7 years old, maybe your father passed away. And if you didn't grieve at that time, which you probably likely didn't if you were 7 years of age, there is a double whammy of grief now. There is not just the grief of the sibling, but there is a 7-year-old part of you grieving as well. So if you've had any other losses or grief, they can all come up as well, and they can absolutely flood a person. You know, I will regularly be working with someone who is actually trying to work through 3 major losses at the one time because of the cascade effect. And if you live in a family where we all are very open about our feelings and our experiences, the grief will be a lot easier for you to process as well, because you know, you can come into the family and say, this is how I'm feeling. But if you live in a more closed family, and I suppose Irish families wouldn't be that well known for being very expressive and very open. So if we live in closed families, it can be exceedingly painful, because we know that we should, you know, the family rule is to avoid the pain. Don't talk about it, because you want to knock everybody else off because they're also dealing with their pain. So unfortunately, in families where children are not able to frankly express their feelings or to talk about the deceased one, the surviving siblings are often overlooked and consequently feel quite alone in their grief. And also, even when families are very close, as we'll see later on, it can actually be too much to expect them to support you, because we're all going through this together. So let's say there are 3 surviving siblings and 2 parents, and you're just devastated and you need some support. It can be, you know, too much to ask the other members of your family at times for support, because you're drowning in your grief, but they're maybe also drowning in their grief as well. And that can be painful. It can be very isolating and lonely experience in the family, where you feel like, I feel like I have no space to grieve. And it's important not to see that as a statement of your family not caring about you, but maybe as a statement of your family being saturated with grief, and maybe an awareness then for you that I really do need support, but I have to find it elsewhere. Maybe a really good listening friend, or a therapist, or some other mechanism of support at the moment.